Hey, welcome to another Franchise Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Jason Revere. Today, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to let your circumstances be your guide when you are investigating which franchise is best for you and how to narrow your search using your circumstances. We're going to be covering how much money you really need in order to start a business. I mean, how much money do I actually have to have in order to start a franchise? I'm going to give you some concrete examples of what that looks like and how that relates to letting your circumstance be your guide. And then we're going to be talking about how to break through that self-imposed glass ceiling that we all have. I mean, don't we all have that? Like this self-imposed glass ceiling. Like, I can only make 100 grand a year, or, I'm only going to be this uh, good looking or whatever, right? I'm only going to be able to drive this kind of a car, whatever that looks like for you. We're going to be talking about it in the business sense, but so breaking through that self-imposed glass ceiling, and we're going to be talking about authenticity as well. Authenticity and how important it is when letting your circumstances be your guide to be authentic to yourself and to not reach and go outside of what is authentically you. But we're going to start with something that's near and dear to my heart. Jason Statham movies. Oh, man. The new Jason Statham movie hit theaters a few days ago. It's called Beekeeper. And it's going to give you exactly what you're looking for. If you like Jason Statham movies, I mean, it's just like a franchise, right? Even though he's not in a movie franchise right now, it's a standalone movie. This is not part of a movie franchise, but it's just like going into a franchised business, right? It's that consistency that you're looking for. And this Jason Statham delivers yet another consistent movie that is a really fun watch. I'm going to be talking about that here for a few moments. So if you don't like hearing about movies, you can go ahead and skip through this if you'd like. But I like talking about movies, so we're going to talk about it. So, The Beekeeper, all right? And by the way, I'm not going to have any spoilers, so I don't even have to give you a spoiler alert. I'm just going to be talking in some generalities here about the movie itself. But The Beekeeper, the crux of the movie is he is a guy who defends the defenseless. Okay? His entire mission in this movie is to bring down the bad guys that take advantage of, really, for the most part in this movie, the elderly. And if you like watching people get beat up, just totally eviscerated, that are about the biggest piles of garbage on the planet, people who rip off old people in these boiler room style call centers. If you want to watch them get their heads beat in, you're going to want to watch this movie. It is a fun watch. The best part about a Jason Statham movie, and by the way, if you don't know who Jason Statham is, go ahead and Google it. He was in, the first thing I ever saw him in was a movie called Snatch, just a fantastic, underrated movie. Guy Ritchie directed that. It's a great movie. Highly recommend you go out and watch that. But then he went on to this just total action hero tear through Hollywood, right? I mean, he's probably the last remaining real action star. Like remember the 80s when it was just action star after action star? Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, my personal favorite, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Dolph Lundgren, in a handful of others that were just these hyper masculine dudes just going out there, guns blazing, both metaphorically and real guns, and they're just going out there just totally being the ultimate apex man, right? There's what do they call it? Toxic masculinity. They're personifying toxic masculinity, but it's all done in good fun. It's all campy and goofy, and they're out there shooting things. So it's totally unrealistic. I don't think it's got anything to do with the toxic masculinity in today's culture. This is just fun, good old fashioned family punching people in the head, right? Jason Statham, he's carrying that torch for those guys. He's probably the last one to do it. If you look around at action stars these days, they all look like Tom Holland or gosh, yeah, well, what's the guy who played Iron Man, right? Robert Downey. They all look like that. They're kind of gaunt, scrawny little guys. So he's carrying on the mantle of these just super masculine guys that are going out there and just doing having their way with the bad guys of the world, and it's a super fun watch. But we're talking a little bit about authenticity earlier, and I mentioned that kind of boiler room style sales culture and environment that you see in movies. Boiler Room being one of those movies. Wolf of Wall Street being another one. Glenn Ross, right? Where they're just these crooks, just criminals stealing from people and then celebrating it, right? They're building these massive empires of wealth off the backs of all the hard-earned money of these old people that they're ripping off, totally scamming, selling these garbage, penny stocks or crap real estate endeavors. And man, I watch those movies, but they give you the willies, don't they? I mean, my goodness. And if they don't, then good for you, right? And maybe you should. By the way, you probably shouldn't be buying a franchise. You should just go out and start your own boiler room, you weirdo. But I digress. Those movies, they give you the willies to make your skin crawl, right? And that's why I love this Beekeeper movie, man. It's like Jason Statham is going to fight Gordon Gekko and Ben Affleck's character in Boiler Room, and Al Pacino in what's that movie? The Glenn Ross, right? It's like he's going out there and just physically accosting these people because they don't have the courage to actually steal from people looking at their eyes, right? They're going to steal people from people over the phone. It's just like the lowest form of existence, lowest form of humanity. And Jason Statham in this movie, Beekeeper, just goes and it really scratches that itch. So highly recommend you go check it out, especially if you hate those boiler room losers. Just go watch that. You're gonna come out of it and enjoy it. It's not a family-friendly movie, okay? So it's an R-rated action movie. Lots of swears, nothing else. No hanky-panky, none of that stuff. But a lot of swears. But the great part about Jason Statham movies is a lot of times he keeps his language real clean. He says one swear in the entire movie, and it's not even it's one that they could play on TV. And so again, I don't want to get too amped up. I get excited about talking about these movies, so I'm going to move on here in a second. But back to that discussion here. So that's it with the Beekeeper, by the way. Go see it. It's in theaters now. But when we're talking about authenticity, okay, you know you better than anyone else knows you. And sometimes, though, we want things that we don't have, and so we think we need to do things we haven't done, which is true, but that doesn't mean you have to be something you're not. Okay? Don't get confused with, yes, you will have to step outside of your comfort zone. Okay? But that's different than going against your authentic self. And that's what a good franchise consultant, franchise broker, anybody that's talking to you about buying a franchise, they should be getting to know the authentic you. And they should be asking you some hard questions and putting you through the paces a bit to help you to identify what your authentic self is, and then to help guide you into the right franchise opportunity that's going to match the authentic you. Okay. And so, I mean, there's many ways of doing that. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on it, but understand this. Like that Boiler Room, right? There are franchises out there that operate just like the Boiler Room style businesses out there. They do it ethically, they do it morally, but it's the style with which they approach their business. And I love some of these franchises. Okay? But it's that kind of, real sales culture, up in your face, loud music, jumping around, high octane kind of vibe to it. All right. That's not for everyone. Okay. It's just not for everyone. And so if you're that kind of a person, even though these types of franchises are great, it is going to be an uphill battle for you if you were to get into a franchise like that. That's what I'm talking about with authentic yourself. You got to know you. And you got to know how to kind of read the tea leaves when it comes to a franchise, right? Watch their YouTube videos. Do they look like people you want to hang out with? Do they sound like people you want to hang out with? Do they look like you? Do they sound like you? Do they feel like you? If they don't, that's probably a good indication that you're barking up the wrong tree. So stay true to yourself. Stay true to yourself throughout this entire journey of buying a franchise. I presume if you're listening to this, you're either, again, related to me, or you're looking at potentially owning a franchise sometime in your future. So that's got to be tip number one for you today, is just know thyself and stay true to thyself and go into it understanding that you're going to have to identify which franchise group matches you, the authentic you, not the you want to be, the you are. Because you can improve your skill set. You can't necessarily change who you are. And so that's going to be tip number one for you today. But we're going to shift and go into what I opened the podcast with, which is to let your circumstances be your guide. And what does that mean? What does that mean, to let your circumstances be your guide? All right. It's a little complicated. We're not going to be able to get into all of what this looks like, but I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and maybe if you could see yourself in it, it'll make it a little bit more crystal clear. But the what this really means is, okay, where are you in life, right? How old are you? If you're, let's say if you're in your 20s, right? A person in their 20s is going to have different goals and different things that they're trying to accomplish than somebody who's in their 60s, right? Not good, not bad. It just is. You're going to have different things that you're going to be looking for. And so like a guy in his 60s, right? Number one, he doesn't have a ton of time left. And so if his circumstances dictate that he is trying to do this to fuel his retirement years, he's going to have to get into something that's cash flow positive, like instantaneously, highly profitable, and something that he can exit in like 2 to 3 years, maybe 5 years, put him at like 65, 66 years old. To exit, to be able to build up a nest egg really quickly, especially if he's coming to you with like $100,000, and he needs to build his retirement fund quickly. It's totally doable, by the way. And if you're in your 60s and you got $100,000, give us a call. We'll help you find your circumstances, but those types of circumstances are going to be very different than somebody who's in their 20s. Maybe that guy in his 20s wants to become like, a young hustler, right? Maybe he is one of those boiler room kind of kids. He just doesn't have the vehicle to put himself in to grow to build a business out of. So he's looking for a franchise that's going to do something like that, right? Those are the kind of circumstantial things that you need to know when you're going into business for yourself, right? And we asked all of us here at Revolution Franchise Brokers is what we do. We'll ask all of us circumstantial questions because that'll help us to paint that picture. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. As I mentioned before, these are the names have been changed to protect the innocent, as they say. So I'm gonna talk about a couple clients that we're working with now, and maybe you can help to see yourself. So one of my clients, he's relatively young. He's 46 years old. Works for a large technology company, and he's in the marketing department. Right now, he's a contract employee. He makes great money. Clears about $190,000 a year, so he's doing very, very well for himself. His wife is a stay-at-home mother. They got 2 kids, young kids, and they don't have a ton of money sitting around just burning a hole in their pockets. By the way, if you got kids and you're in your mid-40s, it's real tough to amass a big old nest egg, because those kids, man, they cost a lot of money. And so I totally empathize with him because, by the way, I'm in the same situation. So that's the circumstances. Okay, that's his circumstances. He's in this contract job. The contract ends in April. He has a couple choices coming up. They may renew him. They may not. He doesn't know. He's left in limbo right now. It's coming up the end of April, just right around the corner. And he's highly skilled, highly technical. Been doing this for a long time. He'll probably be able to get another job again, but when you get another job, you're starting from ground zero. So his circumstances, they're changing every single moment here. What doesn't change is the fact that he's got a wife who's a stay-at-home. I hate saying that, but her job is to take care of the household. Very important job. She's busy, but doesn't the income is solely on his shoulders, right? Squarely on him. And so with these two kids, you got the mortgage, you got the all the other bills you got going on. Again, occasionally you want to eat some food. And so you got all this stuff going on, and it's real difficult to take a risk. He's got $30,000 sitting in an account that's kind of earmarked for this venture. He's looking at franchises, earmarked for this venture, and that's a scary proposition, isn't it? Especially when your job is in limbo. What do you do, man? Holy cow! So we obviously got to go to work. His circumstances are he needs to earn $190,000 a year as quickly as possible from his business so he can leave what he calls the corporate BS. He didn't shorten it, but I will since this is a PG-rated podcast. He's trying to run away from that corporate nonsense. He's been doing it for a very long time. He's in his mid-40s. He's sick of it. Who's been there? Show of hands, right? But he's got this contract coming to an end. Oh boy, it's a lot of money. Hopefully maybe we can keep that going. Maybe I can find something semi-passive. But golly, if I find something semi-passive, that's going to cost more money, isn't it? Yeah, it is. You got 30 grand, man. The most you can do, the biggest franchise you can possibly buy is going to be about $150,000. You got great credit and nearly perfect credit, so you could probably get a loan for about $150,000 with a $30,000 cash infusion. That doesn't leave a lot of money in the bank now, does it? For incidentals. What if you're one of your kids needs braces right away? It's like, oh boy, there goes $8 grand. That happens fast. So we got to find something for him, right? We got to find something because he's got the passion, he's got the drive, he's got the skill set, he's got the wherewithal to do this. His circumstances are such that he has got to either keep his job or get something that cash flows really fast. And he's got a wife and kids to take care of. Boom, easy, done. We got a franchise for him. It's gonna match. It matches his skill set perfectly, right? And what this franchise has, that maybe one of their weaknesses is going to be on the lead generation side of things. Not really necessarily weakness, but it's not their strength. Let me put it that way. What's his strength? Lead generation. He's a marketing expert. Boom. So that's a good fit, right? What he lacks is he doesn't have the business savvy and all the other stuff, the coaching, the training, the access to the materials and the stuff of what this franchise does. They actually hold the patent on the particular thing that he's going to be offering his community. So they answer all of those questions. He takes care of the marketing side of things, even though they're going to help to a great degree. The best part is, though, he can afford it. He can afford this thing. He's got a mid-800 credit score. He can get a loan for about $100 grand with no money down. You got to get creative, but they exist. So he can step into this franchise and walk in, open the doors. Oh, I left out some of the best parts. Low overhead, home base, low overhead, fixed royalty, $400 a month. Boom, nothing. He can get a new job. His wife doesn't work, who takes care of the kids, but guess what? The kids are they're in school part of the day. So she could do some of the stuff. It's a simple operation, simple product to sell. She could she could go into be a part of the sales team. She could be part of the management team there. All they got to do is hire one installer to do the stuff, and he can do it comfortably without being scared, and to begin the process of building this big business that he envisions himself doing, but without scaring himself half to death. Right? Like his circumstances dictate he cannot make a mistake. He has to find the right thing, the right vehicle, the right way, and at a price he can afford. So hopefully we found it. We'll know. I'll keep you posted. But that's a circumstance. Let's talk about the polar opposite here. Got another client. Yeah, he's up in the Northeast. He's got a military background. He's in the military for 22 years. Okay, now he's in the Guard and he's a school teacher. He is looking to get into a franchise, But guess what his circumstances are? Well, he's been in the military for 22 years, although he does have younger children. He's got a wife that works. He's a school teacher. But his circumstances dictate that he can do pretty much whatever the heck he wants because he's got about $2.2 million liquid. So when you got $2.2 million liquid and all he wants to do is to find something that he can do that allows him to leave the profession of teaching, which he's in currently. He doesn't mind it, but it's not something he wants to be tied to every single day, every single moment of every day, especially at his wealth level, while also continuing to build upon his wealth level. So, that being said, he doesn't need to get into some sort of high volume, low overhead, high returns kind of a franchise that's marketing and sales driven. He doesn't need to get into that. He can get into something that's got some overhead, but builds a nice business that he can eventually sell for a multiple of the EBITDA and go into his retirement with either an additional, maybe $1 million of nest eggs sitting there, or better yet, just gives him something to do, right? Gives him something to do, place to go hang out. He wants a coffee shop or something of the like, right? And that's not my forte. It's not what I typically would lean towards. They don't make as much money as a lot of other franchises that exist out there, but his circumstances are such that why not get involved with a good, it doesn't have to be a coffee shop. He was using that as kind of the example, but it could be anything. It could be a little wine bar. It could be, it could be like a small pastry shop. Maybe pies. I don't know. Peach cobblers. Who knows? I wouldn't recommend going into those two. Not a great business, but you get the point, right? His circumstances will dictate that he goes one direction. Because he can do whatever the heck he wants. Those are two polar opposite extremes, but their circumstances will be their guide when looking at what type of a franchise to buy. So don't let and then we talked about remember the self-imposed glass ceiling we were going to talk about before? This is what I mean by self-imposed glass ceiling. Okay? If you're in your job, like our first example, and he's sitting there, if somebody calls their job the corporate BS, they're miserable, right? We don't have to be some soothsayer here, saying beware the Ides of March, right? That's not us. We don't have to see the future to know that this person is miserable. Corporate BS. Holy mackerel, man. You've got to be miserable. And by the way, he's in the majority. If you do any research on this, it looks like 70+% of people hate their jobs. So, he's in the majority. He's also probably in the majority. He doesn't have a ton of money sitting around. But you know what? He's in the minority here because he's not going to let his stupid self-imposed glass ceiling push him down anymore. He's not going to sit there in his cubicle, which he works from home, but it's the metaphorical cubicle, and having his life dictated by on high, right? Big brother, whatever you want to call it, making him do things he doesn't want to do, right? I don't want to sit through another meeting. I don't want to file another TPS report, right? And he's just sick of it. But he's not going to do like our friends in Office Space do, where they rip the company off, because that's not ethical. He's going to take the ethical approach here. He's going to wait until his contract expires. He might get another job, he might not, but he's going to have himself a plan for the future. And no more self-imposed glass ceiling is his mantra. Right? I'm not going to get, but if you don't know what the glass ceiling is, Google it. But it's typically referred to with the kind of the gap between the men and women income levels, right? That's where the glass ceiling kind of originated. But now it means so much more. It's all these people who are letting the man, so to say, dictate what they can and cannot do in their lives. And there's nothing wrong with having a job, though. Don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a job and being an employee. That's a noble thing to do. But it's not noble for you to complain about And it's fine to complain about it so long as you're doing something about it. So if you're letting that glass ceiling kind of just keep on keeping on, right? Keep on crushing you down, it might be time to kind of smash through that and eliminate that idea of this glass ceiling. There's nothing holding you back. The only thing that's holding you back is you, your belief in yourself, and the strategy that you're going to use to get out of it. All right? And that's where companies like ours come in. And we're going to help you figure out what the best option is based on your circumstances. Based on your circumstances. But you will have to have some money to start. Okay, so before we start shattering this glass ceiling, we need to at least stay underneath this glass ceiling for a little while longer until we save up enough money. Okay, good rule of thumb is do not start your franchise discovery process until you have at least $20,000 to $25,000, preferably 25. Actually, I'm going to scrap that. Let's say 25. Let's be resolute. $25,000 sitting in an account that is not earmarked for anything other than your sledgehammer to break through that glass ceiling. Okay? And call it the glass ceiling account or the sledgehammer account, even better. Put it in there. Don't touch it. It's there to help you to live your goals. Okay? What else are you going to need? You're going to need a credit score of at least 750. Okay? 750 credit score, $25,000 in an account, marked sledgehammer for the glass ceiling. And there's other circumstances, other things that go into that too. You got to have at least some sort of buying history, like have had a mortgage in the past, maybe have had paid off all of your student loans, have taken vehicle loans out. That way you've got some borrowing history and creditors can look at you and say, okay, that person's responsible, and it's more than just the credit score and the liquid capital. So those are the minimums. Okay, minimums. So write that down if you're taking notes. I don't know why you'd be taking notes, probably driving around. But remember it at least. $25,000 in your sledgehammer account and a 750 credit score is where you need to start. At that point, hit up our website, revfran.com. Please don't go to Google, and I'm going to tell you why here in a little bit. Don't go to Google to look at franchise options. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's like going to Google and saying, who should I marry? Don't know. Google's going to come back like, oh, shit, I don't know. Top 10 most attractive ladies, right? And it's like, okay, but I can't meet them, and I don't know who they are, and they're not going to know who I am. No, don't ask Google who to marry, and don't ask Google what franchise to buy. It's a wasted effort. And it's led to more failures than even the marriage thing. So, all right. That's your way of breaking through that self-imposed glass ceiling. That's understanding how to use your circumstances to be your guide as to where you want to go. Now, I want to talk about action. Then we're going to wrap it up. So, if you are getting that, if these are your circumstances, if this sounds like you, you're sick of your job, maybe you've been laid off once or twice and you're sick of that. You just want some more control. Maybe you just want some more income coming in. You want to start to build a business. Whatever that goals are, whatever your circumstances are dictating. A lot of people will sit around and wait for for inspiration to strike, right? Whenever inspiration strikes is when I'm going to start. Okay, that's fine to a point, but that's a good way to never ever be able to break through that proverbial glass ceiling. That's the best way to do it, is to just do nothing and wait for inspiration to strike. Because here's the problem. Inspiration will never strike when you sit around doing nothing. So I'm going to flip it around. Let's do this. Strike. And then inspiration will appear. Strike and let inspiration appear. And I'm not saying jump into some franchise investment or just start something without thinking about it. That's not what I'm talking about. Strike means take that first action step. Okay, that's what I mean by strike. Then inspiration will appear. For example, if you hit up if you hit us up, you strike, right, we're going to reach out to you. And any number of good franchise consultants is going to do that too. They're going to reach out to you. Then they will provide the direction. And direction brings clarity. Clarity can then lead to inspiration. And inspiration can lead to living out the dreams that you have. So strike, then inspiration will appear. Don't wait. If you're already in that position. Okay, if you got the monies that we talked about before, pop quiz, what did I say? 25 grand and a 750 credit score, at least, because you're going to have to borrow a little bit. Any good franchise out there is going to be in that $70,000 range or above. So you're going to have to borrow some. Don't get scared. Happens all the time. It's how business is done. It's not that scary. Take you 2 minutes of getting your credit report and your last year's W-2. We'll send it off to one of our guys here if you're using us. We've got a whole team of funding specialists out there, and they'll run the numbers and tell you what you can qualify for. It won't hurt your credit, nothing like that. Again, nothing scary. Strike, then inspiration will appear. Okay. That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you joining the Franchise Revolution podcast. For more information on anything that we talked about today, you can subscribe to our blog on the revfran.com website, revfran.com. Go ahead and click subscribe to this, by the way, too, please. We'd like to see that. It makes you feel good to see somebody subscribe to you. Whether or not you liked it, that's irrelevant. Just subscribe, and it'll tell you when a new one comes up. And we'll go from there. If you loved it, give us a 5-star. If you hated it, give us a 1-star. That's how else we're going to get better. If we don't know what people are thinking, how else we're going to get better? So go ahead and do that for us, please. And on the next episode, we'll get ready for the next episode. Hey. Anyway, next episode, we're going to talk about the Franchise 500. Remember when I said earlier, don't Google stuff? Yeah, don't Google stuff. You know why? It's going to lead to these goofy lists out there like the Entrepreneur Magazine's Franchise 500. Okay? Good, bad, or ugly. That's what is going to be our topic on the next episode of the Franchise 500. And I'm going to end it here with a quote from Jason Statham himself. This is from Beekeeper. Repeat after me. I will never steal from the weak and the vulnerable again. Be excellent, guys.